Oh, I didn't get rid of that picture. Oops.
We're here.
We'll
We're
work on
back.
that. And
We're
welcome
live,
to
pal.
TNA Top 10. We're obviously live because I screwed that up. Anyway, this is a big week for the football show. We had some real football, more than 5 games this week. Not that we had any great games necessarily, maybe a handful, a whole bunch of whoopings of some in-state Division 1 AA teams or whatever, but we had football. That's all we care about. We're going to talk about real football today, Andrew.
Buddy, I think we learned some things this weekend too. You know, it's I love college football. Eat, sleep, breathe it. As you can see, the picture behind me is from the glory days. Welcome to your worst nightmare is what that says with the skull and crossbones, which we probably will get to here shortly when we preview Nebraska's game and whatnot. But I was surprised by a couple things we saw. I was also not surprised, and we called a couple things that we saw. And I guess, we're going to get into it. We're going to preview it. The one thing that I like as I'm looking at these schedules, and anybody that I think likes college football, buddy, we're going to see some competitive games this season. It's not – I know there were a bunch like Alabama beat Western Kentucky, and, God, whoever Ole Miss played, Furman, they just – and Auburn had their fun too.
Yep, Auburn against Alabama A&M, yeah.
But my point is that the games are going to get real competitive, and we're going to preview them, and we always talk about contenders and pretenders, and I think we found out game 1, 12 o'clock, ABC, ESPN this week, Terry, ACC versus SEC. I think we found out who was a real pretender and who was not.
That's true, but I got to tell you, I got graphics, and I don't remember what order they went in.
So that's fine.
Leading up to the wrong game. Why don't we?
There it is. You got it right. Yes,
so I got the right one. So Clemson and Georgia, pretty one-sided at the beginning. It looked like Clemson was going to play some defense against Georgia. 6-0 at halftime, but that second half they just blew the doors off of them.
So in a loud and clear voice last week, I said that 13.5 in Athens was not enough. So ESPN told me that this was going to be between the hedges. It wasn't. This was a Mercedes-Benz, which, quite frankly, Terry, might as well have been Athens. Yeah. Georgia home field advantage. You look at this, 189 yards of total offense from a Clemson football team.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of this game. We had it on at the office. I sold the car, which was great, but we did it early, and then everybody hit the road for Labor Day weekend, I guess, because after about 2 o'clock, we were not busy at the office, which is about the time the second half started. And Georgia come out. They do their 2 tight end sets. They're going to run the ball. They're going to just beat you up on the line of scrimmage. And by that fourth quarter, Clemson was gassed. 28 points Georgia scored in the second half. 14
you know what the problem is? They don't have any depth because Dabo is stubborn about the transfer portal.
Yes, and the NIL. So until he gets with the program, and this is my thing about Dabo Swinney, 2-time national championship head coach. Obviously, he had the benefit of, Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. I've said that a lot. He had a great defense. His defensive coordinator is now the head coach at Oklahoma. That happens. But you are recruiting in the middle of SEC country, Florida, Georgia. Florida, it was a joke to start with, but Florida, Georgia, Miami, Alabama, even South Carolina for your in-state, right. Tennessee right next door, North Carolina to the north if you want to go that way. Yeah, I don't know yet. Their quarterback's out with a broken leg for the season. So anyway, if you don't adapt, you're going to die. That's really how this works. And so you could see you talked about a significant fall in some teams in the SEC, Terry. Clemson could be that team in the ACC that's going to be 3rd or 4th place.
Well, somebody's got to decide their first place in the ACC, though.
That's true.
We may have seen that team show up this weekend.
Because Virginia Tech blew a lead. fucking Vandy. Vanderbilt 1-0. Write it
Oh.
down, Terry. And they beat Virginia Tech.
They did.
We didn't put in the results, but you and I were
I didn't put
texting
it
back
in
and
these.
forth.
This is not one of those. Yeah.
We were texting back. Vandy was up 21-0, wasn't it, or 17?
Well,
They
I
were up
remember.
big.
So I remember sending you the score, and it was 10-0. And then I said, "Oh shit, it's 17-0," because I didn't realize that when I saw that it was 10-0, they were on the 5-yard line about to score again.
Damn Vandy. But Vandy stopped Virginia Tech from coming back. But we talked about Virginia Tech being a team that could play in the ACC. They got beat by probably the worst team in the SEC. No offense to Vandy, but they're not known for football, you know? Anyway.
I don't know. They got that awesome quarterback from New Mexico State.
They did.
I say that as an Auburn fan.
And let me just close up our discussion on Georgia Clemson like this. I said it last week. I'll say it this week. I all of a sudden sound like Nick Saban. Let me get my hands out here. We're about the program here, you know, here in Georgia. Until someone beats Georgia, they're my team.
That's right. You said that last year.
But this year, they didn't start flat, buddy. They beat Clemson. This is not a we won the game. This was a glorified ass whooping. And you look at that stat right there. 47 rushing yards, 2.1 yards a carry.
Yeah.
It's really hard to execute your entire offense if you can't run the football.
That's true.
So, anyway.
All right, the next game we're going to talk about Notre Dame and Texas A&M, which was a pretty good game for a while, 6-6 at halftime. But I think Notre Dame finally found some offense, and A&M never found any offense. 246 total yards of offense.
Yeah, they started chunking it. Notre Dame, that is, and they found the breaking points. And as you see there, the stat that matters: 2 interceptions. Yep. You're driving. You don't turn the ball over, and you can't turn the ball over against Notre Dame. I've seen some criticism of Notre Dame's schedule, but they did draw SC and they did draw Florida State, so it's not that you know. Oh, now they've got an inroad to the playoff, and it's going to be cupcakes for. Florida State will bounce back, okay? And SC, as much as I make fun of them, they're tied up with LSU right now at halftime. I believe it was 13-13.
Oh, is it 13-13? There was 10-10 a minute ago. Yeah.
Okay, well, it's probably 10-10. I don't know, but it's tied up. Anyway, A&M had the opportunity with 100,000 fans or whatever it was at Kyle Field. Mm-hmm. That's why they call it the home of the 12th man.
Right.
They stumbled. They stubbed their toe. They did not deliver.
That's right. And I'm looking as an Auburn guy. There's too many teams above Auburn. I need A&M to slip below them. That's all I'm saying.
That's right. Number 3, Terry, what's up next?
And we got Penn State, West Virginia. We talked about West Virginia being good, and they are. Penn State, 457 yards of total offense. Played good defense, got 3 turnovers.
Big delay in this game, too. Yeah, big time delay in this game. 2 fumbles and an interception isn't going to get it done, Terry, against Penn State. That defense is so good again, and Manny Diaz is the head coach at Duke. So, I picked West Virginia to win mostly because we need to argue about something. We can't sit there and agree on everything.
Well, it's hard in week 1.
But the other thing is, this is week 1, and you're going into Morgantown. We have no idea what Penn State's going to look like. We can make suspicions and inferences with Drew Aller in the offense and that. But Manny Diaz was a very successful D coordinator. Very good defense at Penn State last year.
Right.
This Penn State team took advantage and did what good teams do. They made West Virginia pay for those turnovers. I will say this, since we're talking West Virginia. McAfee and Saban on game day singing Country Road with the crowd, and McAfee taking his shirt off when he picks West Virginia. Oh, my God. It was fantastic. Poor Saban. And then the vibing, like I think it was it Lil Wayne that's playing? And McAfee is dancing, and Saban's all serious. He's got that.
He's just sitting there like a statue.
Yeah. That's how this show works, folks. I'm the Pat McAfee of this show, and that's Nick Saban right there. And Terry, he is so serious all the time, and I'm like, let's vibe, Terry. Come on, we're gonna dance a little Wayne. You know, it's gonna be great.
Wow.
that was a joke. But in all
Give
seriousness,
me a few weeks and let us roll some wins off. You'll see some celebration.
that TikTok was freaking hysterical.
It was
though.
great. Yeah. I love both of those guys being on there. I mean, I see so many people complaining about Pat McAfee. I don't get it. I love him on there.
He brings enthusiasm to everything he does, and that's what I respect and appreciate. We got another game, Terry. What is it?
We do, and that's Miami and Florida and Miami. And this is the team I was talking about earlier. I said somebody's going to have to step up and decide they're going to take the ACC. The problem with this game is Florida just that bad? And the answer might be yes. But Miami showed up and did it, though. I mean, they really put it to them.
This is game one. This is in the Swamp, and I said to you, picking our teams, again for our discussion and whatnot. I said I'm gonna take Florida in this because this is the Swamp. Steve Spurrier, as the head ball coach, coined Florida's stadium as the Swamp. It's always been a very difficult place to win. Miami went in there and spanked Florida. This game is not close. If you think these statistics are lying and the numbers aren't exactly, I promise you, the beatdown is as bad as the result here. It was ugly from start to finish, and the U might be for real. Again, though, you and I have said this now for 8 weeks, I think. Mm-hmm. Florida has the most difficult schedule in the program, in the country. And this one was marked as a winnable game, as they had the opportunity to win this game. I don't know that that's the case, Terry, how many more of them they have, because they got to play UCF, and that quarterback out of Arkansas, Gus has him humming and strumming the way he wants. Jefferson, right? I think it is.
Jefferson, KJ Jefferson.
Like you said, he's got a big athletic quarterback. Who's that sound like?
Exactly.
A couple national championships, or at least one win and an appearance that way. Right. Point being, you got to play UCF. You got to play Florida State. Then you get the SEC, and all of that entails Billy Napier will not be at Florida at the end of the year. That is my prediction. And it's because of this. They're not going to keep you on staff if this is the type of losses you take at home. At home.
Yeah, and reality is that they may have fired him last year if it weren't for not wanting to bring a coach in to this schedule.
Yep.
I mean, you don't want to hire a guy and then tell him, congratulations, you got to play all of these teams this year.
Yeah, you got the worst schedule in the entire country, and Georgia's
maybe the history of college football.
Georgia's is number 2, though, believe it or not, because they've got Murderers Row too, and we'll get there as the season goes on.
All right.
Up next,
if I can hit the right button, UTEP and Nebraska. Let me let you take over here.
Terry brought a book this week.
I'm going to read my book while you talk about Nebraska.
Fantastic outing by Nebraska. They had the fumble in the red zone, which absolutely drives me crazy. Here comes the running of the Bulldogs, by the way. They're going to be coming in the bedroom here in a minute. Great timing because they're both Nebraska fans as well, Molly and Roscoe. Come on in, you two. Come on in and lay down on your beds. Let's not mess around tonight. I'm on the podcast. We're talking about Nebraska, Molly. Okay. Anyway, so 507 yards of total offense, 25-36 passing, 284, no picks, 223, 4-7 rushing, 1 fumble. Okay, the fumble came in the red zone, which was absolutely stupid. It was 7-7. But guess what happened, Terry, when they fumbled the ball in the red zone?
Well,
they did not panic. The defense, the black shirts, went out there, anchored by Nash, and they went ahead and forced a safety, got the ball back, and went ahead and scored, and the march was on. This stadium, Memorial Stadium, Lincoln, Nebraska, was so loud, UTEP was forced to use 2 early timeouts. They couldn't hear jack shit. You have been to Auburn when that happens. You can't hear anything. There is no, and they've got communication in the helmets now. If you can't hear anything, you can't hear the offense. So, on the topic of Nebraska, Dylan Raiola, 239 yards, 19 for 27 passing, no picks, 2 touchdowns, benched in the third quarter. 102 people played for Nebraska Saturday, Terry.
102.
102 got in the game.
Wow.
102 players played for Nebraska, including Harburg, who obviously had a great outing. This is the invite to Colorado. The Colorado scouting report, as I joked, to me looks like this. Once again, their offensive line is the vulnerability of their team. They do not have a rushing attack. Best I can tell, they have at least 3 players that are going to be in the NFL next year in Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, and the other receiver that he used so well. That is 100% what I see from their offense. Their defense is mediocre. Nebraska's defense is going to press the issue. The best thing they can do is get that pass rush with the front. If they get the front pass rush, remember, Nebraska sacked Shedeur Sanders 8 times last year. Their defense isn't as good as it is right now. And that's why you see the picture in the background, "Welcome to your worst nightmare." This is from, if I'm not mistaken, a Colorado game. It's going to be 7:30. It's going to be under the lights. It's going to be Tom Osborne Field. It's going to be loud. And what I want to see out of Nebraska is an intensity that you haven't seen in 20 years. Now, speaking of 20 years, let me get on my soapbox a minute, Terry, and we're going to talk about Auburn. I obviously am the purveyor of Kool-Aid around here. I am the Kool-Aid man, especially on social media. I love Nebraska football. Guys, I was born in 1985. The man himself was the head football coach. I happen to be alive and remember 60-3, unfinished business, 3 national championships, a Heisman Trophy winner. Those were the glory days. And then I got told by somebody this week, well, Nebraska sucked since 1997. Nebraska fired Solich on a 10-3 year in 2003. They fired Bo Pelini, who averaged 9.5 wins a season, and put a lot of defenders in the NFL, for those of you playing along at home. So this is what I'm going to say to all of my fans out there and haters and people that want to talk shit. If you want to talk shit, I'm not going to engage. If you want to talk X's and O's and what they did wrong and what we can improve on and how your team did better than mine, that's fine. We can do that. But know this, I was Husker born and I'm Husker bred. And when I die, I will be Husker dead. And before Allison spreads my ashes in Tom Osborne Field, I want you all to know that hate me or hate my love for Nebraska, you're going to have the opportunity because I'm going to be presented face down before they put me in the fire. And that way you can all kiss my ass one more time. Go Big Red today, tomorrow. I'm looking forward to the Colorado game.
Sounds like it. So I will point out one more thing before we move on. You're going to see this pattern when you look at the score per quarter. Nebraska here, we saw this pattern all over the place this week. A slow start in the first quarter and turn it on in the second quarter, and then just coast the rest of the way. Several teams did this. The good teams are coming out, getting on top, and at halftime they slow it down and they just play defense. And that's what you do against these weaker teams. And Nebraska did it, and carry that over and learn some lessons and watch some film and let the coach tell you that's not going to work next week. And then you go from there and we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. I expect an excellent game and a great outing from Nebraska. The fan base is invested. We talk about Pat McAfee, frenetic energy, just bringing energy. When you're forcing the other team to take their timeouts in the first quarter, it's obscene. And to Bryant's point, I want to mention one other thing. Dylan Raiola, my man, the gunslinger, is exactly what was advertised. He's humble. He's thankful. He's grateful for the opportunity. But when game time came, Terry, he was telling the fans to get loud. He was getting pumped up and hyped up when Cirrus the Bulls music starts playing, because that's tradition in Nebraska. And he was ready, and he delivered. He, in a post-game interview, obviously he did the prayer with his family before the game. In the post-game interview, he said the moment got big on me and got real for me. And how could it not? His father's name is in the Ring of Honor at the University of Nebraska. He won the Remington and the Outland Trophy Awards as a center and played 14 years in the NFL. He's grown up around this program, and that's what makes this so special is he understands. And he delivered, and the entire fan base is behind him. So we're on to Colorado, and we're going to have a buffalo hunt come 7:30 Saturday night.
All right, let's move on to Auburn. So Auburn wins 73-3 against Alabama A&M, and that's right up the road from me here. And obviously, this is a 1AA. I'm old school. It's 1AA, FCS, whatever you want to call it. Huge mismatch. There was no expectation. This is a paycheck for them. Good for them to get the money. They probably needed a lot. Auburn rolled off 628 yards of offense, 451 through the air. They got 177 rushing and with just about 10 yards of carry. They pretty much did what they wanted to. They did lose 2 fumbles on Saturday, though, so they got to clean that up a little bit. Defense held to 1 yard of carry. And I don't know, Alabama A&M passed for 200. At some point, they're just going to start throwing it around. You're going to put your second string in. The question is, moving forward, you can't learn a lot playing Alabama A&M. It's good you go out and throttle them, but is that 204 number from Alabama A&M, does that transfer over when they play tougher offenses, and is the secondary going to give up chunks of yards? And that's the question that I have right now. Can they keep their hands on the ball with these fumbles? But you look at the quarter score here, 28 in the first quarter, 24 in the second. They were up 52-0, 52-3 at halftime. So obviously they did the job. It's good to see that. It's against a weak team, but, as an Auburn fan, I have not seen this kind of start to the season, even against a weak team, in a pretty good while.
And that was what I liked about Nebraska. They won their first home opener since 2019, Terry. And it was against a Division 1A team or one team or whatever, FBS. But the point is that, the reason we get excited when we see these things is we, as educated, paying attention fans, I am obsessed with Nebraska football. I can tell you all sorts of things about Nebraska football that we haven't talked about on this show. But the point being, the same with you with Auburn, we know what we're looking at because we've watched it long enough. Yeah. We know what looks good and what looks bad and I don't know about all that. One thing I want to ask you, because I did not watch this game, full admission.
Right.
Did Hugh Freeze call the plays?
I did not watch this game either.
Oh, okay.
Admission. But I would imagine he did, because that's supposed to be happening this year.
Well, that's why I asked, is I wanted to see if you could confirm whether he was going to call the plays or not.
Right. I was not at my house, so I did not have control of the remote. So,
and no one wants to watch Auburn spank A&M, Alabama.
Exactly. So, a lot of Alabama fans and Georgia fans around me, and Florida State fans around me, so they got control of the remote. But what I did see, looking at the stats, the true freshman receivers showed up. The transfer from Penn State at receiver showed up. Those were the top 3 names in receiving, so it's good. They got the new guys in. They threw the ball around to several guys, and in the passing game, they held on to the ball. The 2 fumbles, they got to clean up, but didn't throw any interceptions. Threw for a lot of yards. It's good to see. Let's build on it.
Yeah, I really hope that Auburn does. I love good football. That's what I say. I want to see Auburn execute, because I want to see them be able to compete with inside the SEC, which is stacked. I want to see, because they're my team, I want to see Nebraska first get bowl eligible. Second, return to being some team that you have to contend with. They don't have to win every game, but I'm tired of seeing lopsided blowouts, and worse than lopsided blowouts against the really good teams. I'm tired of seeing 35 since 2018 one-loss games.
Right.
Where 1 or 2 plays made all the difference in the
score.
Goal. Yeah. So we're going to rank the top 10 for this week, Terry, and our understanding is that there was no polls, so we are using old information. Is that correct for
Yeah,
our
so
options?
what we said, what we stated at the start of the year is the options that we put out there are going to be any teams that got any votes from any voters for the AP or the coaches poll. And that's 50 something teams. But after week 0, there was no AP or coaches poll. They did not do one after that. So we only still had the preseason. So Georgia Tech is not on there yet. Even though they beat Florida State, they have not received a vote until I imagine they'll get one in this next one that's coming up, like tonight or tomorrow, whenever it comes out.
Sure. And now they're 2-0 because they did win this weekend as well.
Right.
They played Georgia Southern. Does that sound right? Maybe. I don't know. It doesn't matter. They're 2-0 now.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think somebody else played Georgia Southern, but yeah.
Yeah, it's Georgia somebody. Anyway, let's roll it down, Terry. Who's number 10?
Number 10 is Oklahoma. They beat Temple this week, and they are going up against Houston next week. They are 1-0.
Yeah, I saw this game at the gym. It was like 51-3 or something that they won.
Yeah.
But they lost one of their wide receivers to a broken foot. The other thing I want to point out to anybody that likes Oklahoma, and Terry, to your answer your question, it's 10-10, LSU USC. They just kicked off third quarter. Anyway, Oklahoma 1-13 on third down. That is not going to work in the SEC. You got to get that cleaned up. I get that you're playing Temple. There was some opportunity for Temple's defense to sack the quarterback, to get after the quarterback, to make negative plays. I just want to point that out, that this is how we're going to talk about these teams. We're going to point out the good, the bad, and ugly. They won 51-3. They probably should have won 70-3 or whatever.
Yeah.
It should have been more than that. There were points left on the board. There's opportunity left on the board. And Brent Venables, as you know and I know, been in a coaching position a long time. Coordinator, now a head coach. He'll figure it out, and he knows what he has. The biggest question is his transfer quarterback the guy? And I think based on the Temple game, we can say Arnold is. But we'll see how the season progresses.
So Auburn's first 5 games are at home. They do not leave Jordan-Hare until the 6th game, and that just happens to be in Athens, unfortunately. So there'll be a huge change. But the 5th of those 5 games is welcoming Oklahoma to Jordan-Hare. So that'll be a big game for both teams.
Yep. And the one thing you mentioned it, and this will be the last time I mention Nebraska tonight. They got 4 in a row at home. Very strange to see that many in a row for both Auburn and Nebraska, that you've got them scheduled that way. They've got 4 in a row at home, consecutive sellout 398 coming your way Saturday night, Colorado. Go ahead, Terry.
Let's look at number 9,
Michigan,
defending national champions. They beat Fresno State, but the score was much bigger than the game was. They won 30-10, but they got points late.
And it was slow. They were slow to get those points. Michigan's in trouble, I think. And
Texas in week 2.
I'll speak on that. I was going to say, it's one of our predictors. I'll speak on that in a few minutes, but this is not the Michigan team that won the national championship.
Not at
all. They had a lot to build from the previous year when they lost to TCU, and then they go ahead and they run the table last year. This is a team I think can lose 2 or 3 games and it not be shocking. You can't open up against Fresno State like that. That's not going to work. But anyway, they still are the defending national champion, and they do welcome Texas to Ann Arbor Saturday. So we'll see what happens there.
Number 8, Ole Miss. Seems a little low.
Y'all haters.
They beat Furman, beat the brakes off of Furman, and they've got Middle Tennessee this week, so they're not going to slow down. They're going to put up more points.
I think Lane put 70, whatever it was, and then
76. Is that what
700 total plus yards of offense. I mean, it was a clinic. Jackson Dart, I've said this, probably the best quarterback in the SEC. And that SEC has Jalen Milroe, has Nussmeier at LSU, has we just saw him at Georgia. I forget his name, but Carson Beck. They are stacked in the SEC with talent, but they might have the best one, and they've got Lane Kiffin, who, by the way, in case you didn't see it, Terry, retweeted Nick Saban's Verbo commercial, which is hilarious. If you have not seen the Verbo commercial with Saban giving the rules about how you're going to share his house, it's hysterical.
I have seen that.
Yeah, it was funny to me. I think Ole Miss is a top 5 team until someone tells me otherwise. And that somebody.
Yeah. I kind of relate them to kind of being the Penn State of the SEC. I kind of spoke to that a few weeks ago, that they are going to play with everybody, but they need to learn to win those big games, and they hadn't done it yet. This might be the year to do it, though.
Yeah, they look great. They look great this weekend. Number 7, Terry.
Number 7 is Penn State, the Penn State of the Big Ten.
Yeah, Virginia Tech, big win in Morgantown. Defense showed up. Aller got what he needed to do, because they've got to get production out of him, because that's the only way they're going to win.
And
it
shouldn't be minimalized, because they went to West Virginia and won. They won fairly comfortably.
Force turnovers. You force turnovers, you capitalized on them, you do what you do to be good teams. Elite football teams force the turnover, win the turnover battle, score on the turnover. It's not just that you made them fumble, you take it. So I'm good with Penn State in this spot.
Yeah.
They've got, like you talking about Ole Miss, and I agree, they're very similar in their conferences. They got to show us. They got to show us, because Penn State, what they have shown us is they'll beat everybody except Ohio State and Michigan.
Right. They got Bowling Green next week, so we're not really going to see them up against anybody yet. But they'll keep putting it up there, and
but good for them saying yes to a game in Morgantown, because that is not an easy task for anybody,
And they did it.
They did it. Number 6, Terry.
Number 6 there is Notre Dame, and this is the one I'd probably swap with Ole Miss, honestly. They won at Texas A&M, which is big. I think there is a little bit more. Texas A&M is not as good as people think they are than there is Notre Dame's that good. But Notre Dame, I mean, they showed up and they won. They went on the road and they won the football game.
They did what they needed to do. Marcus Freeman was very frustrated most of the game. This game was sloppy. A lot of pre-snap penalties, a lot of unnecessary penalties, mistakes, drop balls, fumbles, etc., or not fumbles, but what am I trying to say? Poor hand up, whatever. Marcus Freeman knew what to do, though, to get the win. Elko's debut was spoiled. Notre Dame gets a big victory in hostile territory, and it can't be understated, Terry, how big a deal that is to win in College Station. That's a hard place to win.
It's a big, loud crowd.
Big, loud crowd. And they don't have anything better to do in freaking College Station to go to football games.
I mean, they go over midnight the night before and fill the stadium up and scream at the top of their lungs.
Exactly. So Notre Dame winning, good for them. We knew Notre Dame would be a solid football team. I don't think that the litmus test is A&M, though. I don't know that they're good enough. It's a first year. Fisher got fired. Elko's in. I don't know that you can say that's a great measuring stick. I think it's a measuring stick, but you're not going to tell me Texas A&M is the measuring stick of the SEC. So let's see what Notre Dame does, and let's be tempered with our comments, because I'm not going to bash them, even though I think that they are chronically overrated, or they have been in the last 2 decades. But I will say this, because this is the same team that supposedly was going to take Alabama down, and we all saw how that went in the national championship game. But I will say this, Terry. Freeman is very energetic, very young, connects with his players, gets them to buy in. As long as they keep doing that, Notre Dame's going to win football games.
Yeah, and I know last year he made some mistakes coaching during games. He's probably learning. I mean, he's a young guy. He's going to have to learn some of those things.
He's my age. Like, he's 38 or 39 or 40 years. He's not that old. So he might be 40. But the point is, that's a very young football coach.
It is.
Because they're calling Kalen DeBoer young at Alabama because he's what, 53, 54, something like that. But anyway, who's number 5?
Number 5 is Oregon. They slipped down. And the reason for this is they did not bring the offense this weekend in this win against Idaho.
Statistically, they dominated every category. It looks like they're going to throw the ball, though, Terry. Did I see 41 attempts at passes? Something like that?
They brought Dylan
Anyway,
Gabriel in, and they're going to use him.
they're going to use him because he's the transfer from Oklahoma, as everybody knows. Dylan Gabriel is, and you've got a great young coach there too. Let's see. Let me pull up Oregon. They were number 3, by the way.
Bryant says 49 attempts.
49 attempts. That's even worse. So here's your team stats, and I'm just going to read this off real quick, Terry. Oregon wins this game 24-14. They had 31 first downs to Idaho's 10. They were 7-16 on third down, 1 for 3 fourth down, 487 total yards, 380 passing, 41 for 50 to Bryant's point, 107 yards rushing, 8 penalties for 60 yards, and a fumble. They also forced 2 fumbles. They dominated time of possession, 39-15 to 20-45. And this is in Eugene, and they get the win 24-14 against Idaho.
So where does the 24 come from? With all those big stats, what's glaring at you that kept them out of the end zone?
I honestly have no idea, because if I looked at these stats and didn't know the score,
Right.
I'd tell you they scored 50 points.
Right. Yeah.
Like legit.
So this is the reason, and I didn't watch this game, and I'm going straight from box score here.
Me too.
Be straight up on
that was just straight box
this
score.
This is the reason in our chat earlier, I was like, I hope I have time to watch this game, but I have not watched it yet because I need to understand why they scored 24 points and not 48.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm gonna have to be like you and catch it, because I did not get to see it. I was watching, I believe, were they playing about the same time as? Well, they were playing at the same time as one of my other, because I promise you, I watched football from 12 to the time I went to bed. So anyway,
well, I guarantee you they will not be playing at the same time as any other damn team this weekend, and we'll get into that later.
Number 4, Terry.
Number 4 is the Texas Longhorns. They have solidified number 4. They've been sitting here for every poll we've had. 1-0. They beat Colorado State, and
handily.
They go to Michigan
handily beat Colorado State
in week 2.
And we saw Colorado and Colorado State have a barn burner last year, but they handily beat Colorado State this year. And we got to see Arch Manning. First drive, touchdown. So there you go.
And this is going to be a tough team coming into the SEC this year. It's going to be really exciting to see. I don't know what week I would have to look this up, what week they start the conference games, but I think there's a few games before they start it. But we're going to see a test against Michigan.
Yep. We'll get there.
Number 3, Alabama. They beat the crap out of Western Kentucky, and they've got South Florida, the return trip. They went to South Florida last year and had a pretty close one. That's the one that he benched Milroe, and then they're hosting them this year, week 2.
I don't think you're going to see that same result against South Florida in Tuscaloosa. Kalen DeBoer, was it 52-0 or something against Western Kentucky? I think you're going to see about the same there at Bryant-Denning. And let's not forget, Nick Saban Field is about to become a reality. That is happening. 63-0. Okay. Mm-hmm. That is happening this weekend. Nick Saban the field is going to be named after him at Bryant-Denning Stadium. So,
okay.
I promise you, those boys are going to come out amped up. One thing I saw out of Alabama is it doesn't look like their defense has missed a step. Now, let me qualify. They're playing Western Kentucky. I get it, guys. I get it.
TJ Finley again.
But they were aggressive. They were ball hawking. They wanted to force those turnovers, and they bailed Milroe out, when he lost the ball. So
yeah,
DeBoer's got a much different temperament than Alabama. Everybody, it's been 17 years or 18, I guess, since there was a coach not named Nick Saban at the University of Alabama. This is an adjustment. This is going to be different, but I think it's going to be fun. And as always, Terry, roll Tide.
Okay, so now we'll move on to number 2, and that is The Ohio State University with a big win against Akron, and they got Western Michigan next week. So it'll still be a couple of weeks before we see any kind of test.
They played the same time as Nebraska, so I did a check-in on them, and they were not doing well against Akron. And what I mean by that is I think they were up by 2 or 3 scores. Don't get me wrong, guys. I get it. That's huge, but not when you're Ohio State. Like this team, me and Terry have said it over and again, is built for championships. That's what the whole point of putting this team together was, to build a championship run.
Well, they kind of started slow. I mean, started slow as in it was 7-3 at the end of the first quarter.
Yep.
They did score 10 in the second quarter, but they turned it on in the third quarter and put it away.
And when they turned it on, I mean, they turned it on. And so what I'm thinking is at halftime, they got the speech, they got the adjustments, they figured it, you know, their defense is solid. Their offense is going to be very good. Ohio State is a national championship contender, as much as that pains me to say, because we all know about church. But anyway, Ohio State, number 2, and I don't think number 1's debatable, Terry.
And that's the Georgia Bulldogs with a big win against Clemson. It wasn't close. Might have been close for a little bit, but they turned it on them in the second half. And then Tennessee's Tech's going to feel some pain this week.
When you talk about adjustments, good adjustments, Kirby made good adjustments against Clemson. The double tight end sets work. The running game works. The stifling defensive front of Georgia that we know has become characteristic of the Georgia Bulldogs is the real deal. Until somebody proves to me they can take Georgia down, Georgia's number 1 team in the country.
All right, let me run it down. We got week 1 TNA Top 10 as voted on by the listeners and the viewers. And we always thank you for that. Number 10, Oklahoma. Number 9, Michigan. Number 8, Ole Miss. Number 7, Penn State. Number 6, Notre Dame. Number 5, Oregon. Number 4, Texas. Number 3, Alabama. Number 2, Ohio State. And number 1, the Georgia Bulldogs.
The Georgia Bulldogs. They're used to being in that spot these days, Terry. Our poll or anybody else's.
So that was the results of last week in our poll for this week. Why don't we move on to the week 2 games that we care about? And we say it that way because Auburn and Nebraska are always going to be on this list because you know we care about them.
Yep.
But the big game here, we get Saturday at noon, right off the bat, we got Texas and Michigan. Another interesting game that we think that's going to happen around noon is Arkansas and Oklahoma State. And then we've got Iowa State at Iowa at 3:30, along with Cal and Auburn. The return trip for Cal. Auburn went out to California last year. Cal's coming to Jordan-Hare. Tennessee plays NC State, and that's a sneaky one right there. NC State didn't necessarily do great this week, but that should be a pretty decent ball game. Tennessee's traveling. And then your favorite here, Colorado and Nebraska at 7:30. And the freaking 10 o'clock game, Oregon hosts Boise State.
Yes, sir. Let's break these down a little bit, Terry. We got a few minutes. Texas, Michigan, Ann Arbor. Hard place to win. They call it the big house for a reason. There's going to be 108,000 people or whatever it is, 105 in blue. By the way, Bryant, I agree. Missouri is a top 10 team. If you all do not believe me, go see some highlights and look what their defense did in their ball game Saturday. Their offense also put, what was it? 50 points, 51 points, something like that. It was ridiculous. Anyway, to the point, Texas and Michigan, because we are on the producer's time now. Michigan loses this game at home. Yeah. That's my prediction. Texas is too good. Michigan doesn't know who they are. And Texas knows exactly who they are. The team that was 2 or 3 plays away from playing for the national championship. So, I'm going Texas. I'm going in the big house. I understand that's a hard place to win. If it was Jim Harbaugh coaching Michigan, I might pick the other way, but not this year. Stark's going to have his guys ready. Texas wins this one. And I think it'll be 7 to 10 points. I know the spread's 5.5. I think it's probably a 7 to 10 point game.
I'm with you. I think a touchdown. I don't think it's going to be 10. I think it's going to be fairly close since it's in Ann Arbor. Texas is just too much. Michigan has lost too much since last year.
The
Not
one
as
thing
much
that's
as
gonna,
Washington, obviously, but
right. The one thing that's going to keep Michigan in this game too, Terry, just to wrap this point up and we'll move on to Arkansas, because I know you want to talk about Bobby P, is their defense is still very good.
Mhm.
And Texas is going to get used to facing very good defenses here. I still think Texas is too much. And I am not a horns down guy. I have respect for that program and what they've
Right.
done over the years. I think Texas takes this one, though. Now, the Razorbacks in Oklahoma State, the man versus Bobby Petrino, two fans of alcoholic beverages before and after the game. I said it, not Terry, but Petrino's first game back in Arkansas as the OC. They score on every single possession. They weren't playing anybody. It was like Arkansas bluff, blah, blah, blah.
Pine Bluff, yeah.
Yeah, they weren't playing anybody, but they won 70-0. They scored every single a touchdown on every possession, but he's going up against the man and Ollie Gordon. And despite how good South Dakota State was, Terry, we talked about them. We didn't talk about Colorado and North Dakota State. That's where I think Colorado's got some vulnerability because they might be the best FCS school in the country, being North Dakota State.
Right.
But they ain't the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And forget the Cornhuskers, they're not everybody else inside the Big 12 either. So, but this Oklahoma team, led by Ollie Gordon, handled business. They took care of what they were supposed to take care of. And then the man quoted Shaggy after the game, which was great, talking about how he needed Connor Stallions, but it wasn't him. You know, what's that song? Wasn't me. Yeah, that was great. I think he was already drinking. Plus, he had his mullet not the way we like it. That thing
his hair, it's like he had a perm or something.
Oh, God, he was out there with his mullet. But where is this game? This game is at Oklahoma State.
At Oklahoma State. And that's an interesting point there. But I think Arkansas, and I hate to say it, I hate saying that SEC teams are going to be better than we thought they were. But I know it was Arkansas Pine Bluff, but I also know that Bobby Petrino's over there. So this could be a pretty good Arkansas team.
Your pick? I went first last time. Your turn.
You got to risk it sometimes. I'll go ahead and go with Arkansas. I think Arkansas will go in there and win it.
It's Stillwater. It's the man. It's Ollie Gordon. It's going to be a freaking basketball game. I don't think you're going to see defense in this game. I'm taking Oklahoma State.
All right. Let's move on to Iowa State at Iowa. Iowa put up 40 points. Let me say that again. Iowa put up 40 points.
And still didn't cover.
Because it was 40.5.
The spread was 40.5. So, as we've said over and again, fans, always take the under with Iowa. This is interesting to me because I know both teams. I know this rivalry coming from the Midwest, being a Nebraska guy. Iowa State isn't getting the respect probably that they deserve inside their own conference just yet. And they have upset power. But I think Iowa's defense is going to be too much, and it's in Iowa City. That makes all the difference. It's not going to be in Ames this year. So I'm going Iowa, Terry, in a close one. Probably 3 to 7 points.
I'll say Iowa by 7. I think they're going to find enough offense now that they've changed coordinators, and they'll win it by touchdown.
And we're having a massive thunderstorm, so if we have any interruptions, I do apologize.
All right, the next game, also at 3:30 on Saturday, is California visiting Jordan-Hare. Auburn is favored by 12.5. I'm going to go Auburn wins by 20.
Yeah, it's two. California's the only Pac-12 team I think that lost, aren't they?
You mean ACC?
Well, oh yeah, excuse me. Yeah, ACC. They lost. Didn't they lose?
No, I think they won.
Did they win?
Yeah.
Did they just not win big? Doesn't matter. I think
31-13.
They did win?
Yeah.
There's some other team I'm thinking of then. Was it Stanford? Stanford lost. I watched Stanford play. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I think that Jordan-Hare alone is too much. The travel. This is going to be one of those games that tests our theory, Terry, on you've got to go across the freaking country to get ready for this football game.
Yep.
So I think personally that it's too much. I think that the SEC defense is too much for, the ACC Cal here. And I'm going to say, if he's calling the plays, Hugh Freeze gets the big win at Jordan-Hare, and I'll say 30. And I mean it. I say 30 points. Give it to Auburn.
All right. I know they won by 70 this week, but
Don't be a wuss, Terry.
I'm not
You need to be a
comfortable. I'm
homer.
going to say 20. I'm going to say 20.
Don't be a wuss, Terry.
But I will say that he's not going to relinquish play calling duties all year this year. I think he knows it was a mistake last year, so I think he'll do it all year.
Stanford did lose. It was Stanford, not Cal. That's my bad.
Okay.
I was checking it out. But anyway, Tennessee versus NC State. To your point, a very interesting game. Tennessee, of course, rolled against whoever the hell it was they played. It was a nobody. And the Wolfies had trouble with Western Carolina. I did catch part of that game because obviously we're homers here at North Carolina. Terry, your pick, buddy.
I think Tennessee's just too much. I think that there's some weakness in NC State. We picked NC State as a sneaky team, but I don't know that they have it. That first game didn't look great. I think Tennessee's just too much. I think they win by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, they had to come back from Western Carolina. Okay, they were down. The Wolfies were down in Raleigh, if I'm not mistaken. They might not have been in Raleigh. But anyway, they were down. They should have never been down. You can't get down to a Josh Heupel-led, coached team in Tennessee. I'm with Terry on this one. As much as it's easy to be the homer for NC State since I live in North Carolina, but I also know NC State. They're that up and down team that is so inconsistent, you don't know which version you're getting from week to week. If Tennessee executes their game plan, they cover the spread and then some. I'm with Terry. 2 touchdowns, maybe 3, because that offense is going to be so high-powered and jacked up. And NC State does not look like a team that's a built from behind team. Does not look like a team that's going to be a built from behind.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, we think that about West Virginia and NC State being those teams that are underrated, but I don't know. I need them to show me more this season before I believe that. Well, let's move on to a game that you definitely want to talk about. Colorado at Nebraska. Nebraska, the spread that I saw when I did this was 6.5 Nebraska.
I've seen 7.5. I've seen 6.5. It may close before the game, before it's all said and done. What the people that put the spread together are seeing is what we've already talked about on the show. The offensive line is the big question mark for Colorado. You're coming into hostile territory with a rejuvenated and energetic crowd. I've made the statement on this show before, Terry, that there has not been this much enthusiasm for a quarterback since Eric Crouch. I'm gonna revise that statement. There has not been this much enthusiasm at the University of Nebraska since Touchdown Tommy did the damn thing. And in 1992, he went 6-2, and then he went 12-0. Then he went 13-0, and Nebraska wins this game because of the fans and the environment that they're going to provide. More importantly, we're going to throw the bones off, and Shedeur Sanders better find the most comfortable spot on Tom Osborne Field because his ass is going to the turf, and it's going to happen over and over again. Nebraska wins big and sets the tone for the rest of their season.
All right, I'll go Nebraska 2 touchdowns.
I think 2 touchdowns is probably the number. They want the revenge for the Folsom Field incident last year where Jeff Sims turned the ball over 4 times.
Right.
You're not going to see Dylan Raiola turn the ball over 4 times against Colorado's defense. It's not going to happen. The other thing about Dylan Raiola that he brings to this game, and Bryant and I were talking about it while we were texting, is it was 2nd and 30 because of a penalty Nebraska committed. He didn't panic. He didn't flinch. He picked up 19, and then they picked up the first down, and then they scored the touchdown. So this is a gamer with a really good defense and the right pieces around him. So Nebraska, probably 2 scores, I think, is about right. This place is going to be freaking loud. You thought it was loud against UTEP? There's history with Colorado here. And, I mean, it's going to be loud. Get your freaking decibel meters out, folks, because it's going to be loud in Lincoln, Nebraska, Saturday night. Oh, and by the way, Terry, because you love it so much, that game is available on the Peacock.
Well, I've got the Peacock. I'm a wrestling fan, so.
Yeah, it's available on the Peacock. Last game, which Terry is not staying up for.
We got. Okay, we're going to go ahead and throw this out there. Here's what happened this week. Arizona played until like 2 a.m. or something, and we didn't open the poll until this morning because of that. Screw that. We're not doing that. I trust you guys not to go make mistakes and vote on things before you watch what Oregon does. I'm going to open the poll when I feel like it on Saturday night this time because I ain't staying up for a game to end that starts at 10 p.m.
Yeah. And it's 3 hours. You know it's a 3-hour football game. It'll be 1 a.m. if everything goes right and it's not a slow game before it's said and done.
Golly. So, while you've been talking about Nebraska, I've been staring at these stats from the Oregon game this week because I got to figure out how I'm picking this game because I think Boise's a pretty good football team, and they're going to Eugene.
Here, Bryant. We both want Nebraska to win by 60.
But Boise, Oregon won.
In Eugene, though, buddy. Eugene.
But they won by 10 points against Idaho in Eugene. Even with all these stats, I'm not seeing turnovers. I do see some penalties, maybe some penalties that turn the ball over or something. I don't know.
There ain't that many 4th downs either, bud.
3rd down efficiency was 7 of 16. That's not that bad at all. So I'm not seeing what the deal is. So this is very tough for me to pick without knowing what was going on there. I'm gonna say I see Oregon winning the football game. They're favored by 19.5. Give me Oregon by 17. I'm not feeling them really putting it on somebody right now because something's going on with them.
So Boise is my pick to win the Mountain West or the non-Power 4 conference, whatever, to get to the playoff. That being said, it's early, and I think Oregon is going to be highly motivated to play this football game in Eugene Saturday. Now, 10 o'clock is a late kick time. I guess is it 8 or 7 there? 8?
It'd be 7 there.
7 there.
Yeah.
So it's a late kick time for us. I guess it's not so bad for them, but Eugene, Oregon will be rocking. Speaking of rocking, LSU just pulled ahead of USC 17-13. These offensive dominant teams are just lighting the scoreboard up tonight. I'm not picking Boise. I'm picking Oregon. And unlike Terry, I think they covered a spread and then some.
Okay.
This is their bounce back.
They're going to make up for it.
Yeah, this is the game where
in practice.
They clean up whatever the hell happened against Idaho. And again, you and I are both going off box scores. But quite frankly, when you look at that box score, there's not any errors. There's not 5 turnovers or something that could have happened on the goal line that you would say, oh, well, they left points on the board, blah, 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 you know? So I don't get it myself, Terry. But I'm going Oregon, and I think they win big. This is a good bounce back game for them. And Dan Lanning knows how to motivate his guy.
All right. Well, that's our picks for this week, or this upcoming week, week 2. It was good to see football this week.
Always.
So there's a bunch of blowouts. I mean, we had a handful of really good games. We got questions about some teams. We got some surprise teams. You know, like Arkansas came out and somebody was calling it a perfect game because they scored a touchdown every drive. I, as an Auburn fan, don't like to see that. I don't want Arkansas to do that. I
Right.
liked what I saw from Texas A&M. Do that.
Yeah, it's going to be. I still think you've got 5 teams in the SEC that make the playoff. I still think they're going to be your 5 best teams, and I think you're going to see a war of attrition for spot number 6. And I mean, it's going to be brutal because that's going to include teams like Auburn, Texas A&M, Arkansas,
Yep.
Oklahoma. Those are good football teams, but
Maybe.
good in the SEC isn't good enough. That's the
Right.
bad thing. But Terry, this was fun. This was exciting. I know we've gone about an hour, maybe a few minutes longer. Not mean to, but I'm looking forward, of course, to Nebraska, Colorado. You guys know what I'll be doing. 7:30. Don't call, don't write, don't text. I'll be throwing the bones with the boys in black, and I'll find a couple other games to watch. I don't think you can skip Texas versus Michigan.
No,
Um,
it's going to be good. I mean, there's some good games this week. It's not necessary, Texas, Michigan, that's the headliner. That's the big name programs going up against each other. But
And because of
I think there's some
contracts,
good,
they're doing that stupid shit again, Terry, where it's a 12 o'clock football game. Like we all don't
yeah.
have things to do on a Saturday.
Well, we got that, but then we got some of these other second tier games going on. Tennessee going to NC State. No, I said they've got too much for them, but that could end up being a really good football game.
Really good football game. Because the other thing is, and I know we're wrapping up, but my thought on Tennessee is you talk about. I said NC State is so inconsistent. You're not sure what team you're going to get from week 1 to week 2 to week 3
Right.
to week 4. Tennessee's the same way. They were very inconsistent last year in terms of which team we were going to get, depending on how they were playing ball. So, Bryant says, how about the Boise running back going for 250? That can be a big factor. You bet it can. But Dan Lanning is a defensive mind. He's going to find a way to stop that, I think. And I think they're just going to overpower Boise because as much as Boise State has been that team in the past, and the BCS loved them so much, and they did upset Oklahoma in the bowl game. That was also 17 years ago. And Oregon is Oregon. I think they win, and they win big.
Well, before we wrap up, I want to thank everybody that voted. We had much bigger numbers in the voting with this poll. I think actually getting several games going really made people interested in that, but we appreciate that. We were a
Yes.
little concerned because we had some low numbers in the preseason polls, but people weren't ready to vote on anything yet. They didn't see anything. So
Correct.
thank you for that. We really appreciate it. And you had less than a day this time because of that stupid late Arizona game. Because Andrew texted me, "You gonna open the poll?" I'm like, yeah, I guess so. And I didn't do it until like 6:30 this morning or something. But we'll try to figure that out. Don't vote quite yet. If that Oregon game looks close, I'm going to leave it up to you guys and hope you do the right thing there. But we do appreciate the voting. We're really excited to get it going. I think week 1 was really good. Even with all the blowouts, we found some stuff to talk about. Week 2 is going to be good too. Texas, Michigan is going to be fantastic. And we're in the middle of football season here, Andrew.
We
We're
getting
going.
geared up, baby. We getting geared up because, like I said, Nebraska's playing Colorado. This is my Oklahoma. Like this is why I'm so excited about it. I'm not old enough to remember the Nebraska-Oklahoma rivalry because I'll be quite frank with you. By the 90s, when Switzer was, gone or whatever, Nebraska just beat the crap out of Oklahoma every year. And then they did have the game of the century rematch in 2001, 41 flashback. Yeah, that is the flea flicker out of the backfield, the crouch for the touchdown that just really cemented it. But anyway, that was a number 1 versus number 2 in the country game, by the way, Terry. Took place in Lincoln. The Colorado game, though, is to me the first real measuring stick of the Matt Rule era because we knew last year it wasn't going to be pretty. He didn't have the chance to get his recruits. He didn't, all that sort of stuff. One thing I will mention too is they're doing the Arch Manning thing. Nice thunder. They're doing the Arch Manning thing in Nebraska. Danny Killian, very highly regarded quarterback for Nebraska. They're going to try to redshirt. So we'll see how that goes. but they did play Harburg and they did play Rayola. So I expect Nebraska to win Saturday, and I expect it to be pretty convincing, mostly from a physicality standpoint. So I'm very excited because Colorado deserves it. Coach Prime, not taking any questions from reporters that offend him, will not be taking questions after Nebraska's done with him Saturday.
All right, we're looking forward to it.
But no, that's why I said it's so exciting for me because, like I say, it's my Oklahoma for Nebraska. That rivalry, that Colorado-Nebraska rivalry dating back to the 90s.
Well, awesome. It's been a good week. It'll be a good week next week. For both shows, we're just wrapping up recording both shows. Excellent, both of them this week. And as usual, we don't know what we're going to vote on for the other show yet because we are just recording this one and we wait until the last minute. But thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks anybody that listens. Thanks everybody that votes. Throw your ideas our way. Just contact us through a DM or something. T-Weave79. He's 30-year fan. Allison, behind the glass on this show, she is Allison Fay. And as I always say to wrap up this show, guys, be a champ this week and whatever you do. Thanks for coming.